This is Coach Lee, and you're listening to The Door Report.
Do you not realize I have had diarrhea since Easter's?
Okay.
Welcome back into The Door Report, and welcome into episode 312 on a lovely Wednesday, April 23rd, 2025. I am Will Byrum, joined as always by my co-host, Trevor Hulan, a.k.a. Hack Squat Jim Duggan, and after this intro, we will be joined by TDR writer and Russian disinformation specialist Alex Kurbegov to break down the latest transfer portal news, as well as in segment 2, discuss some VandyBoys baseball as Trevor and Alex are TDR's baseball staff experts. So we'll have Alex joining us right after the intro.
Will, you work so hard on this podcast, making sure everything goes smoothly. Dude, you know what, dude? Tonight, you take it off tonight. You take tonight off. Tonight, you're taking off tonight, okay, dude?
I'm gonna be swinging to Trevor and Alex more than you have seen
tonight.
And tonight is tonight.
Tonight
is tonight.
Last night was just yesterday's tonight.
Yes.
And tomorrow night is just tomorrow's tonight.
That is true. These things are all true. Everything stated is true tonight on tonight's episode.
If you did not see the brief interaction we had on Twitter, then you're like, why are they saying
Just don't
tonight?
explain it. Let's not explain it. Follow us on Twitter.
Follow us on Twitter tonight.
But on episode 312, thank you for joining us here, Phoebe. You had a nice day at the vet.
Oh, boy, did she.
But I almost forgot. Here at The Door Report, we are presented by 615 Collectibles. If you're into sports cards or sports memorabilia, check out 615 Collectibles on eBay at ebay.com/str/615collectibles, or you can just go to ebay.com and type in 615 Collectibles in the search bar. Items include NFL team packs, graded cards, individual cards, and more. Shipping is always fast and free. Episode 312, we already went on our tonight rant. That completely threw me off. Alex will be joining after the intro. We have some transfer portal news. Phoebe, right into the lap. We have transfer portal news in basketball and football to discuss.
Yeah.
But that should be, I say should be, there is a lot of movement, so should be relatively quick.
Yeah.
And then we have a lot of baseball to recap. So I want to talk about this early. Normally we record on Mondays or Tuesdays.
Yes.
Lately it has been Tuesday because I have something very important going on Mondays, co-ed softball.
Yeah.
So we've had to bump it to Tuesdays. Trevor.
I had something less important.
Yeah, way less important. No longer a common man. Now an elite. No longer a man of the people. Trevor had a
like you can't be
ceremony
saying that as somebody who also has a master's degree. I feel like we jump over that. I don't have a master's degree yet. You have a master's degree. Also, Blake Fromain coming at me being like, oh, yeah, he was used to be for the people. This man has in his Twitter bio attorney and where he graduated and got his JD at. So I don't want Blake Fromain, who lives in a big, rich, nice house in Florida, telling me that I'm not for the people. I don't want to hear anything from Blake.
Trevor had an awards banquet for his
Yeah.
schooling because
he's a scholar.
We're not actually as dumb as you may think we are. We are pretty dumb.
The dumbest person you know is actually really smart.
Where were we even going with this? Oh, yeah.
How we're scholars.
We have more baseball
Yes.
than normal. We have 5 games that have happened since the last time we recorded. We've had 2 midweek games and the weekend series. The last midweek game, the 10-inning victory over Lipscomb was going on as we were recording. So 5 games. Normally we have 3 or 4. So a lot of baseball to get to in segment 2. A roller coaster of emotions, you could say, surrounding Vanderbilt baseball, as it seems to have been all year. But Trevor, I'll swing it to you real quick before we get to Alex. What's the vibe check right now? A lot of things to consider. Positives in the transfer portal, positives and negatives in both baseball and the portal. So where are we sitting?
You know, before I give my vibe check, I just want to I want to note how the dichotomy between us and the differing sports seasons. So traditionally in football, you're known as Wet Blanket Will, and I'm of course a Sunshine Pumper. In baseball, I feel like the roles have reversed. The roles have reversed to where I am just torrential downpour Trevor, and you are much more positive on the baseball front. With that being said, basketball is humming in the portal. I'm very, very excited to see the final roster that Byington puts together. Additionally, Vanderbilt football had a couple of commits as of late. I really, really like those guys. Let Barton cook. And I am not going to let the bad loss to a bad Middle Tennessee State University Blue Raiders overshadow a tremendous weekend sweep against number 5 Georgia that the VandyBoys had. So my vibe check right now, I'm going to go a 7.5 out of 10.
Up a point from last week. I believe it was a 6.5 out of 10 last week. So we were up a full point. Well, we have all that and more to get to before we get into segment 1 and are joined by TDR writer Alex Kurbegov. We are now a part of the Rivals Publisher Network. Visit thedorreport.com or vanderbilt.rivals.com today and subscribe to a premium monthly or annual membership and support TDR. You can use code DOORREPORT, all capital letters, no spaces, for a 30-day, no-risk free trial. And I just got to add this in real quick. Trevor and Alex have been doing an incredible job on portal coverage, outscooping everyone. So if you want the best portal coverage possible, subscribe today at thedoorreport.com and go to the Behind Closed Doors message board. That is the best portal coverage you can find anywhere. Also, don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at The Door Report. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Our podcast is available on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and Google Podcasts. And while you're at it, give our podcast 5 stars and review on iTunes. It's now time for segment 1.
I like my whole team, actually. I love my team. I'm just trying to do something exciting by having a team with all really bad people. I just want to feel cool and dangerous. And
welcome back into episode 312 of The Door Report. I am still Will Byrum. This is still Trevor Hulan. This is still Phoebe, our producer, but we are joined by, what would you even call it? Senior writer, lead
Vanderbilt insider.
Vanderbilt insider, TDR Vanderbilt insider Alex Kurbegov, looking like James Bond right now, just rolling out of bed, looking snazzy as hell. If you're watching on audio, just imagine the most dapper man you've ever seen. That's Alex right now. So Alex, thank you for taking the time and joining us here.
Of course, unlike a certain Blake Froming, I really value my airtime and the platform that you guys are giving me, So I come up well dressed.
Yeah, Blake's getting a little cocky with his 6-time guest
he's
over
getting
here.
a little sloppy.
Yeah, I like what I'm seeing here out of young Alex. But to start off here on segment 1, we've got baseball in segment 2. Alex is our in-house expert on baseball, does an incredible job with the recaps and previews for baseball series. Trevor also considers himself an expert, so they can battle back and forth on that. But we're not starting with baseball. We're going to start with the transfer portal, and I guess we'll start with football first because it doesn't really matter in what order. A little bit of news on that front. Cam Johnson, he had already transferred prior to last episode, right? No.
Oh,
did he? I don't think he had yet. Okay.
I think so.
So Cam Johnson, tight end from Vanderbilt. We actually talked about him in the spring game recap. As being a really talented guy. Of course, a very talented and crowded tight end room for Vanderbilt. Cam Johnson entered the portal and then had a really quick turnaround, already committed to Wake Forest. So I put into the message board on Behind Closed Doors that absolutely no surprise that he went P4. Absolutely no surprise that he went to another Power 4 program. Cam Johnson, an incredibly talented guy that just got caught in a crowded room.
Yeah.
You don't say that very often at Vanderbilt, but that just is what it is.
Yeah.
Demarion Thomas, your guy. I believe he committed to Oklahoma State.
Oklahoma State, which is different than what I was initially told.
Yeah, we initially expected, I believe it was Texas Tech.
It was I was told that Texas Tech came in with a very lucrative offer compared to what he was being paid.
But Oklahoma State gets the commitment from Demarion Thomas. Vanderbilt had another couple guys enter the transfer portal. They have not committed anywhere yet. Josh Raymond was a freshman Vanderbilt offensive lineman last year, has entered the portal. Johan Cardinus has entered the portal. And this is where I see the occasional response that's like, see you later, better off without you. And I'm like, these guys aren't leaving. These guys are being told to leave at this point. Demarion Thomas was not that case.
Yeah.
But the other ones, the other guys you're seeing enter the portal, and this is across the country. This isn't just Vanderbilt.
It's not a Vanderbilt thing.
You'll know when the guys are leaving of their own volition. Those are the guys that have, like Georgia State's leading wide receiver just entered the transfer portal. That's a guy that's leaving to pursue better opportunities and greener pastures. Guys like Josh Raymond, guys like Johan Cardinus, that's not the case for them. Those guys are being told there's not a scholarship spot here for you next year. It is what it is. It's the new college football. But Vanderbilt did get a commitment, actually 2 commitments.
Yeah.
One happened very recently, so I don't even have the
Like
notes.
30 minutes ago.
Yeah, one happened very recently. I believe the name is Mason Nelson, a defensive lineman from Western Michigan, 30 total tackles and 2 sacks last season. An experienced guy, 4 years of college football under his belt. Vanderbilt also got another commitment from a defensive lineman. I am completely blanking on. Oh, Jalen Stone. That's the other commit from SEMO, Southeast Missouri State. 32 total tackles last season, 2 sacks. So you have one guy's an FCS transfer, one guy's a group of 5 or whatever the hell you call it now, transfer up. So Vanderbilt very quickly replacing what they lost in Demarion Thomas.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're not going to replace necessarily the guy individually, but to moneyball it a little bit, replace him a bit in aggregate.
Yeah.
And this, I know you want to talk about it, and I'm sure Alex does, but this defensive line room is deep. So a lot of, I won't say a lot, some movement, anything that sticks out to you guys in either direction, Trevor or Alex?
I'll say this, and I'll say this wasn't even my take. I want to shout out our boy Braden McPherson. Whenever this transfer news broke, and he put it into words into ways that I actually hadn't thought about it. This Vanderbilt defensive line has double-digit serviceable guys, and by our count, they have about 11 or 12 serviceable defensive linemen that could be contributors, impact players. This defensive line is deep. This defensive front is very deep, and that's not getting into the back end with your linebackers, which arguably is the most talented group out of the entire defense, just from a collective standpoint. But, man, this defensive line is dirty, and I'm very, very excited to see them in the fall.
Yeah, I'll echo everything that Trevor said. I will just say I believe that Johan Cardinus, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, honestly, he just committed to Minnesota earlier today.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
He is rejoining former Vanderbilt running back coach Jaden Everett, who was here last season, I believe.
Okay.
So I think that was kind of you can read between read the tea leaves and see that there had been some prior communication between those two that he would have more opportunity at Minnesota than he would at Vanderbilt.
Yeah,
and,
similar to what happened to Cam Johnson. I mean, maybe not quite the same, because Cam Johnson, I think, any other 2-year stretch is a guy that's Vanderbilt's number 1 tight end, or at least the number 1 receiving tight end. It's just he ran into Eli Stowers, Cole Spence. I mean, you don't normally have that here at Vanderbilt. Kind of the same thing, but we don't really know what Cardinus was necessarily. But, I mean, you have 3 backs that are just, without a doubt, ahead of him. And MK Young, Newberry, Seti. And then you also have Gillespie there, who's still there, as well as a depth piece in the running back room that's already kind of, I don't want to say proven, but is there and has had carries on the college football stage. So
I will say, in terms of Cardinus, whenever he first committed to Vanderbilt, I was actually very high on him, and I thought a lot of other people were high on him.
Me too.
I think, in Alex, I don't know if you feel the same way. I think probably what set him back was that initial injury. I had no inside knowledge at the time, but there were some people speculating that he could have been like an instant contributor, not like a game breaker type guy, but like a guy that if he was healthy, he would have gotten significant snaps. And I think that injury it just hurt him. You know, he couldn't get a head start.
Yeah, I've heard similar, more or less. I mean, he's a very talented back. I think that he'll do great at Minnesota. I honestly think that in a perfect world, we would have been able to keep him, and then he would have been able to take over after all of our current guys leave. But that's just unfortunately not how college football works anymore. But yeah, no, I really heard that he's a talented back. He's big, he has burst, and he can break tackles, but he was the fourth string guy, and he missed basically all of last season with an injury, and he's just a little bit raw. So, I mean, that's that.
Yeah, that's that.
Yeah.
I mean, that, like you said, that's the nature of modern college football now. There's no more building the depth how you used to. You have to build depth in different ways. I mean, I think 8 years ago, even though Cam Johnson, even if Vanderbilt has the same tight end room, you're looking at Cole Spence and Eli Stowers and saying next year, even though Cam Johnson is a junior, next year is Cam Johnson's year. And it's like he's just sitting there ready to take the reins of being the next tight end in this Tim Beck offense. That's just not what it is in college football anymore. So let's swing it to basketball because there has been some news on that front as well. Starting out on the men's side, even though I think the biggest commitment has really been on the women's side of things so far, or recently in the last week. On the guys that have transferred out, J.Q. Roberts has landed at Davidson.
Good for him.
Good for J.Q. Roberts.
Love
MJ
that for him.
Collins has landed at Utah State, and Karis Bilal has landed at Louisiana State with the Ragin' Cajuns. Or not Louisiana State, just Louisiana. Louisiana State is LSU. The Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns. So 3 guys, really all – Utah State's a good program. Davidson's a solid program, but really all transferred down. I mean, that's what you could say for all those guys. Transferred down. Vanderbilt got 1 new commit in, A.K. Okereke. So Vanderbilt's got a great lineup for John Morant if he wants to attend with Devin McLaughlin
everywhere.
and A.K. Okereke from Cornell.
He needs to be number 47.
He
I
needs
saw
to-
somebody say that he needs to be number 47, and I totally agree.
He needs to be 47. Glock's already 99. Last year at Cornell, A.K. Okereke, a forward, 6'7", averaged 13.9 points per game, 4.6 rebounds, and 4.1 assists. That kind of classic 3-and-D kind of wing. I would say a Chris Mannion replacement, but a little bit more scoring capability than what Chris Mannion had. So you're not going to replace what Chris Mannion brought. That was intangible. Spark plug guy. But as far as scoring and actual stats and what you're going to get, I think AK is an upgrade on that side of things. And size.
Yeah.
Yes, size, length, athleticism. So a big pickup, another piece to the puzzle for Mark Byington. And we're inching closer to a completed puzzle right now.
I'll say this in the portal front for men's before we swing it to Alex for the women's. All right, I'm just going to say it because everybody's freaking out about Tyler Harris. Every other text message and in personal message I get on the board is about Tyler Harris. Guys, I am 9.5, borderline like 100% positive that this guy's a Commodore. It's my personal blood bank guarantee. He's a door. Just trust me. It's done.
Sources,
just multiple sources. It's not just one source, it's multiple. So Tyler Harris is a door. Why it takes these kids so much longer now than it did pre-portal, I think it's a lot of things. I think honestly you're just going to have to get used to kids not committing on the spot and being silent commits. I think that's just the name of the game now, silent commits.
just waiting to make sure no last-minute big money offers come in. That would kind of be my guess. Just leaving that name in the portal for another few days. I don't know. That's all I can think on that front.
I think more than anything, I think it's the registrar's office.
Really?
If you want my personal take, I think it's admissions and registrar's office.
Interesting.
Especially at Vanderbilt. I think that's the big, let's hold off. We're like 95% sure, but like, let's just wait on the registrar's office to give us confirmation. That's my personal opinion.
Interesting. Yeah. Alex, thoughts on the men's front or any of that?
I love the AK Okereke pickup. I think that he brings, like you guys said, a lot of size and athleticism that this team really didn't have last year, or at least if they did have it, it was out of position. And this time he'll be able to play the 3 and 4, which are his natural positions. I think that I've seen some comments, he's only a 32% 3-point shooter. Where's his offense really going to come? He probably won't be able to post up smaller guards like he was at Cornell. I saw a fun stat on him. He's like an 83rd percentile catch and shoot guy. He is elite at a catch and shoot three, and that's what he's going to be doing. He's not going to be taking dribble hezzy like fadeaways like you could get away with at Cornell. He's going to be sat in the corner, Frankie Collins, Mike James, Tyler Tanner. Somebody's going to be creating a shot, and then he's going to hit a corner three. And then I also think that it's awesome that, that 4.1 assists as a power forward really, really stands out. He is your prototypical point forward, and we know that Mark Byington loves to use point forwards, and he wants everyone to be able to handle the ball and pass. So I think that he's like the perfect scheme fit for Mark Byington, as whether he ends up starting or as a depth big. If I had to bet, I would think that he actually plays starter minutes but comes off the bench. But he can just play at the 3 and 4, so he'll just sub out for whichever one of nickel or Glock. And so I don't know. I think he's going to be a great, great contribution. And then, like you said, I've heard that Tyler Harris is a door. I have no idea why it takes this long, but I'm not worried on that front at all.
Vanderbilt's roster slowly coming together in front of our eyes. We have a lot of time to discuss Vanderbilt basketball over this offseason, but we need to swing it to the women's side of things. We don't talk a lot of women's basketball on here, but Vanderbilt got a huge commit. Former 5-star center, transfer from LSU, and I'm going to butcher this name, Alia Del Rosario, has committed to Vanderbilt basketball underneath Shea Ralph, former McDonald's All-American. Didn't put up incredibly good stats at LSU as more of a rotational piece, but I believe she's 6'6", a huge size piece. So, Alex, what do you have? You wrote a player profile on her. What do you think about this pickup for Shea Ralph?
It's a massive pickup, both literally and figuratively. I think that to help you out, it's Alia Del Rosario, and so she didn't put up the greatest stats. She had 2 and 2 in 6 minutes per game at LSU, but we got to keep in mind that her freshman year she was behind Angel Reese, who was a top 10 draft pick and one of the faces of college basketball. And then this year she was behind Anissa Morrow, who was, again, a top 10 pick and one of the faces of women's college basketball. So there really wasn't much opportunity for her. Plus, there were also some injuries that just hampered her in the offseason. She didn't miss many games, but she didn't get a lot of time in the offseason to develop. But coming to Vanderbilt, she'll be the starting center most likely. She will have a full offseason to gel with the team. I think Shea Ralph's offense desperately needs a true post player, and she is exactly that. It'll clean up so much of the defense. It will help the offense be able to compete. And just offensive rebounds, having a girl that's 6'6", that's even in the SEC, I'd say only 5 or 6 teams have a girl of that much true size. So it's that's a really massive pickup. The only question that I have is how that affects Sasa Washington and her position in the team, because Washington's a proven 11 points per game in SEC play. That's nothing to sneeze at all. She's also one of the heart and souls of the team, leader in the locker room. There's no doubt that she'll have a role on the team next year. I just don't really know what that is, because she's very undersized, but she has the skill set of a true center. If she was 6'5", 6'6", she would be one of the best players in all of college basketball, no doubt about it. But with her having been the starting center for what would have been 3 years running if she hadn't been injured this last year, I'm curious to see if she's going to then split minutes with Del Rosario and kind of go just matchup based, or if she'll expand her game out to the 4, or how she's going to do that. But it's a massive pickup, and I don't think it can be understated how much the Shea Ralph team needed some real size in it. And then do y'all want me to get into the other 5-star visitor that they hosted over the weekend?
I was going to ask about
Absolutely.
that. I was going to ask
All
about
right.
that.
Yeah, so over the weekend, if you were subscribed to TDR's Behind Closed Doors, you knew that there was mutual interest between Kaylee Heckel and Vanderbilt before anybody else reported it anywhere. And more or less what I learned was that Michaela Blakes, who's at Kelsey Plum's dog clinic or whatever they call it, I can't remember. But she's become fast friends with Kaylee Heckel, who is a former 5-star guard who went to USC last year. And Heckel, after being recruited primarily by Notre Dame and UConn, who are two of arguably the biggest brands in college basketball, has now scheduled a visit to Vanderbilt. And, y'all probably be hearing this on Thursday, so she'll probably be off campus by now. But she was on campus yesterday and today, with being Wednesday, visiting Vanderbilt, and that would be another absolutely massive pickup for Ralph if you can get a former 5-star who is being actively recruited by UConn and Notre Dame at the same time, and it would also fill the gap that Ayanna Moore leaving left on this team. So that would be a really, really massive pickup. I don't think it can be understated how much work is being put in by Anchor Impact, by Shea Ralph, and all of her staff in the portal. And it's been dead silent for very, very long. But to be able to return Michaela Blakes, return Camille Pierre, get Alia Del Rosario, a former 5-star McDonald's All-American, and now be in hot pursuit of yet another former 5-star McDonald's All-American who's one of the most highly sought-after names in the portal, it's extremely impressive. And I think you're really starting to see the Vanderbilt name brand being built for women's basketball.
Shea Ralph keeps on trucking, and Shea Ralph is a lot of the attention, and of course it does, gets put on men's basketball, and that's how it's always going to be. It is what it is. But very quietly, Shea Ralph is building a hell of a team coming off being a 7 seed this last year and looking like they're not just coming back just as good or improving this. They're coming back reloaded with even more talent.
Yeah.
And you know what? They slightly lost there, but coming back reloaded, and they could be not just another good year being a 5, 6, 7 seed. They could be really, truly competing. Now, maybe not to the level of South Carolina, LSU, UConn, that level, but maybe that tier right below. And that's kind of where Shea Ralph is getting this program, and it's pretty impressive to watch happen in full time, especially after where Stephanie White left this program, which was truly just in the dregs. Like as bad as any program has been left, as bad as Jerry Stackhouse left the program, and Stephanie White left it in a horrible spot. So shout out to Shea Ralph, what she is doing. Anything else you guys want to add on the transfer portal, football or basketball, before we go to segment 2 in baseball here?
I will just ask Alex one question, because you brought up a good point. Like, they're not up there with the LSUs and with the South Carolinas, but in terms of the SEC, if they land Heckle, and knock on wood, God forbid, no injuries going into this season, would you put them as a top 5 SEC team?
Yeah, it was funny. I had a post on the board just earlier today about that exact same thing. So Charlie Cream, who is ESPN's head women's basketball analyst, just put out his way too early top 25, and he had Vanderbilt at 11, which was pretty wild to me. I thought that I think they're a top 25 team. I did not think they were going to be top 15, top 11 type good. At least without Heckle. If they get Heckle, I would say that they're floating around that 10 to 12 range, like a solid 3 or 4 seed, like in there for a 3 or 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. But yeah, I actually said on the board, if they land Heckle, I'd have them 5th in the SEC right now. I'd say South Carolina and LSU are, and Texas, they're indisputably 1, 2, and 3. And then Oklahoma and Tennessee are kind of in the 1B tier. They're both really, really good going into next year. And if they can land Heckle, I'd have Vanderbilt smack dab in the middle of that 1B tier. They have a ton of star power. I mean, Michaela Blakes, Kaylee Heckle, Camille Pierre, and Alia Del Rosario, that's as good as any 4 players on a starting lineup in the country. And I mean, South Carolina and LSU are always going to have more depth than Vanderbilt because their entire rosters are made up of McDonald's All-Americans and the best transfers, and et cetera. But Vanderbilt would be really up there in terms of star power, and I think that they could 100% compete to be in that top 5 range in the SEC. Now, again, like you said, there could be injuries. They could end up not landing Heckle because, I know I've been hyping it up as it's a big deal that they're just in our top 3, but at the end of the day, it is a top 3, and it's against 2 of probably the biggest brands in college basketball, being UConn and Notre Dame. So there's a pretty high chance that they don't land her. But still, nonetheless, you can see the ascent of this program, and it wouldn't surprise me that even if it's not next year, the year after, or even the year after that, when Michaela Blakes is a junior and Camille Pierre is a senior, that they're up there and they're in contention for more than just an SEC title.
So I did say we were going to go to the TDR cocktail break after last thoughts, but then I forgot that we have premium message board questions. So We're going to hit the football and basketball questions, and then we're going to save the baseball questions for after the TDR cocktail break. But first, we have some portal questions. So number one question from World's Strongest Vandy fan says, who is the biggest impact addition nobody is talking about in football? That no one is talking about is a tough question.
That's been a portal acquisition or like a guy that could be returning?
Yeah, portal
acquisition.
Just impact addition.
That nobody's talking about? Probably Coot.
See, I was going to say I think probably Aaron Bryant, probably number one.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm forgetting his name, the Liberty offensive lineman.
Jordan White.
Yep, Jordan White and Aaron Bryant.
Who's going to be your starting center?
Yeah, those are probably the two, specifically Jordan White. Just because he's an offensive lineman, I don't hear a lot of people talking about him, and he's going to be a big make or break on how this offensive line looks.
Well, it's kind of good if you're over with spring ball and you didn't hear much about him, good or bad. You're like, okay, you know what? I'll take that after years of hearing, hey, the interior of Vanderbilt's offensive line is looking really bad. You didn't hear anything. You're like, okay, you know what? I'll take that.
Yeah, then the other half of that question was, who is the addition people need to pump the brakes on, hyping up before they get disappointed?
Chance Fitzgerald.
So I was actually – I don't even want to say pump the brakes as like he's going to be bad because I think
I don't think he's going to be bad.
But I think the number one that people need to pump the brakes on is Keanu Coot. Like not that he's going to suck, just that he's just going to be another cog in the machine, and he's not going to be this game-wrecking player that people are expecting.
I think that's fair.
I think he's a little undersized.
He's light.
He's a little light, and I didn't see anything, and this is one spring game. Okay, it's one spring game, but I didn't see anything in the spring game that differentiated him from anyone else. I think Chance Fitzgerald, I think there are a lot of question marks around Chance Fitzgerald already because is he ready to step into that role? Is he ready to truly be wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 1 with Junior Sherrill? So, Alex, what do you think on either of those? Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I was actually going to agree with you on Coot. Again, not to say that he's bad at all. I just think that his build and his skill set don't really lend himself. I think that, I don't know, I mean, just the name brand of Alabama with him being arguably their highest rated transfer. I think people were hoping that he would come in here and be a 8 or 9 sack guy and really get after the quarterback. That's not what he's built to do. I don't think he'll get to the quarterback every once in a while. He is a freak athlete. Don't get me wrong. But I think that his athleticism and his skill set really shows much more like moving laterally, and he's going to play the razor position. And so he's going to drop into coverage sometimes. He's not going to be asked to be a pure pass rusher. And that's where I think you'll really see him shine because he has the ability to be a solid but not great pass rusher. But then he also has the ability to be a really, really great guy and drop into coverage and take away a tight end when you don't expect it or get to the quarterback when he's trying to break out of the pocket or something like that. So I think that he's absolutely going to be a very quality addition to the team. But what I don't see is him being some game-breaking pass rusher. I think that Corday Sidner is still unquestionably the best pass rusher on the team with Zaylen Wood right behind him. That's my take on him.
Yeah, I'm afraid Keanu Coot and Prince Collie are vastly different in the situations as to why it is the case. But I just feel a bit like, and we might actually see a lot more Prince Collie this year. We saw more last year.
See, I'm a Coot truther.
I hope I am wrong. It's not that I see him being bad. He just is. You said underhyped, but I just think he's the one everyone is talking about, and that's the one.
I feel that way about Hurd.
I think. Oh well, yeah, Hurd also, but I would say Hurd and Coot are the two most hyped up transfers in this class. I think Hurd is going to live up to every expectation and exceed them.
I agree.
I think Coot is just, he might just he'll play and he's going to give consistent good snaps and he'll make some good plays and also make some bad plays. I just don't know if he's going to be the game wrecker that everybody was like dreaming he would be. I don't even know if there was justifiable reasoning behind it. It's just he was a former 5-star. Ben didn't get 5 stars. And he's not a guy that came into Bama and just sucked. He was a guy that had other issues. And so I think that's the only reason I threw him out. It's not that I think he's going to suck or be super disappointing, but he could be slightly disappointing against expectations. So I
will say before we get on, and staying on Coot, my big thing with him is he needs to put on more weight.
Yep.
He's too light in the britches. And if he wants to take that next step, he needs to put on size.
Well, the next question is for you, Trevor. Somebody posted it, can't say who, said, is Trev's pursuit of becoming a doctor and use of statistics and sabermetrics in baseball analysis evidence of him going woke? The people are asking.
Who asked that?
I don't know. Who could have asked?
Oh,
I know
our
that's
boy Alex.
kind of baseball, but
with that being said, brother, I would have woke a long time ago. I'm actually not woke.
Trevor's woke.
I could be woke. I'm like that one guy on Twitter, the Vol fan, who's like, "You're fat, dumb, and a liberal." I'm like, I might be fat, I might be dumb, but don't you call me a liberal, dude. Call me a socialist. I didn't correct him on the other two. I was like, you do not call me a lib.
Yeah.
I'm a socialist.
Yeah, we have a couple sides of the political coin here.
But
Trevor
with
is
that being
not
said,
for the
I do
people.
love statistics and I love advanced analytics and sabermetrics. So, in fact, whenever we discuss baseball, there will be sabermetrics spoken about.
Oh, there will be. All right, a question from Unabridged. He has another baseball, but in basketball, why is there often a long delay between players signing and it being announced? We already talked about that for a bit.
I really do think it comes. I think a lot of it is you're legitimately having to work out a contract now. Like the days of just simply a letter of intent are done. Like you have a letter of intent and you have a contractual agreement that needs to be written out and agreed upon between multiple parties. And really, too, I think the registrar's office, specifically the Vanderbilt, does play a role. Because you got to get these guys enrolled in classes. And like we've hit on dozens of times, a lot of these places where these kids are coming from, the credits don't automatically transfer. So like, you're having to do some behind-the-scenes stuff to make some things work.
Yep.
I was just about to say what you did with the whole credits don't transfer thing. If we look at Tyler Harris and where he's been before Vanderbilt, he was at Portland University and Washington University. And don't get me wrong, no hate to either one of those academic institutions. Washington in particular is a great school. I'm sure that some of their credits transfer over. I'm willing to bet that maybe one of the 8 to 10 classes he took with the Portland Pilots will transfer over to Vanderbilt credits.
Yes.
Yep.
No, Vanderbilt, I swear to God, hates taking any credits. As a student, I can somewhat relate to this with AP credits. I took 14 AP classes in high school. I got 4s or 5s on all but one of those exams. If I went to the University of Tennessee, I would have been able to graduate a year and a half early. At Vanderbilt, I had one of those credits count. Vanderbilt hates letting anything go academically. So I'm sure that what they're trying to do right now is A, work out a contract, and B, be like, okay, wait, is this guy going to have to take 18 credits of summer classes to catch up? Because you got to go to class at Vanderbilt. The athletes do not get a free pass. That has not changed. They've lowered some of their standards, but you don't get a free pass if you're an athlete still, unlike a lot of other schools. So I'm sure that that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah, I have to go off on a slight rant there. Vanderbilt has the right idea with the AP courses and things of that nature. I took AP classes in high school as well. Some of mine did transfer to be college credit. I can just tell you, I'm not the most pro-college guy. An AP class is not even remotely 10% of what a college course is. It is the fact that we even allow that to happen at any university level. Now, it got me out of like English 1 and English 2 and like some gen eds, so that was good. Like, I don't need those anyway, but it's dumb. Like, anybody, like, I'm separated out far enough from it now that people like, but I still vividly remember it. It's a joke. Like, I took AP Bio. That compared to a college level intro to bio course, it's not even comparable on that at all. And I got a 4 on the AP exam, and I did like, it's nothing like it. So I just had to get that out there real quick.
No, I agree.
We have some more basketball, a lot more basketball and football than I expected. From Ezra Chris Magnon, says, probably way too early thoughts, but with most of the roster clocked in for men's basketball, what are the general thoughts for what is going to either make or break this team for success, both leading up to the NCAA tourney and if/when we make it, success in the dance?
That is a really good question. And I don't know how to answer it.
I can right now from the roster construction. Last year, you looked at the roster and you said, without a doubt, the number one issue is going to be size and rebounding. That's what bit him in the ass with St. Mary's. Size and rebounding. this year is going to be having a go-to scorer. Is anyone going to step up and be the go-to guy? Not just a shooter, not just a guy that scores within the offense,
Like you need a bucket now.
but a bucket getter. That was Jason Edwards last year, and to an extent, and it didn't work out oftentimes, A.J. Hogarth created a lot of the offense, just one-on-one driving. Who is going to do that this year? I don't think there's a clear guy to do that yet. They have a lot of good pieces. They don't have the one singular piece like Honor Huff to replace Jason Edwards. I haven't seen that piece yet. So that's what I think is going to be the number one concern. I think they're going to have the size. They're going to have the rebounding. They're going to have, the defense.
The defense, guys, nobody's talking about the defense next year with Frankie and Tanner returning. That backcourt's going to be disgusting defensively.
I just think it's going to be the go-to scoring. I think that's number one. That's going to be the make or break, and it's very different. Last year, that was not one of the things we had targeted as a concern. So that's that's the make or break for me. I don't know. You agreed, Alex?
I totally agree.
Do you have a different thought or same?
No, I 100% agree. I think that if we're looking at it from like the negative side of what might lose us some games, it's 100%. There's not a go-to guy as a scorer. And I think that Tyler Harris could be that guy. Frankie Collins could be that guy, but I don't know that either one of them, I don't feel comfortable saying that either of them will come close to being a go-to per se guy. If you're looking at it from a more positive standpoint, I think that, like you guys said, the defense and the size is much better. The shooting is also much, much better. And I've seen I want to dispel a couple of rumors that I've seen, because if you add up all of the and take the average of all of the shooting splits of the guys currently on the roster, including Tyler Harris, because I'm going to group him in as basically on the roster right now, you end up with about 32 to 33%, somewhere in that range. The Vanderbilt shot 32% last year, and everyone said that's not good enough. However, when you actually go through and add up how many shots they took, so that it's not just counting like Washington's like 5 for 18 threes that totally tanks the average, and Mason Nicholson's like 0 for 1 or something, then you end up with about 36.5% of the threes taken by these guys who are on the roster were made last year. And that to me is that's almost 5% improvement in 3-point shooting. That's a good 10 to 15 points every single night that you're getting from the shooting that you were missing last year. So I think that the shooting on this roster is being underrated, because you got Harris, you got Nickel, you got McLaughlin, you got James, you got Akaraki, who are all very, very capable shooters.
Yeah, the Harris edition would be, I don't want to say the final piece, because you're still dealing with a different roster construction a bit than you had last year. You still don't really have that Jason Edwards guy, but that would be kind of the final piece to the puzzle of this roster. And it would still be that question. Like, the Tyler Harris doesn't eliminate that, but that's a guy that shot over 49% from 3-point last year. I mean, he's a really good shooter. So, yeah, I like that you pointed that out, because the next question goes into even more detail, trying to have us predict things, but says, can you please offer your way too early projection for men's basketball overall record, SEC record, and NCAA tournament outcome in 2025-2026? Feel free to attach whatever assumptions are necessary. I'll start it. Yeah, nobody looks eager. That's a lot.
That is a lot.
I will say, number one biggest assumption that you cannot determine, and is way too early, I think the SEC will be worse as a conference overall next year.
I agree.
I think it's almost impossible for that not to be the case. So I think the conference will be slightly worse. I think Vanderbilt, if they get Harris, the roster to me feels 10 to 20% better. So I think in a worse SEC, 10 to 20% better Vanderbilt. Now, the non-con might not go as smoothly as it did this year. This was a really good non-con, no bad losses. A good team can have a bad loss early. But, I think this is a team you're looking at probably 2 to 3 more wins than last year. I would say you're sitting at 23-ish wins, a 22, 23, and 11 and 10, somewhere in there. And I think instead of what were they this year, what was the SEC record? 8 and 10? Was it 8 and 10?
Yes.
Yeah, they were 8 and 10. I think you're looking really similar, but maybe a 9 and 9, 10 and 8. So I think they're just that. To me, what I see on the roster right now, and there's a lot that could change, I just see a team that's 10 to 20% better than last year. That's a lot of assumptions. A lot. I think the conference will be down slightly. Not down overall to college basketball or anything, but just you're going from probably the best conference in the history of college basketball to now they're still the best conference this season, but they're not historically the best conference. That's why I think, I would say 9-9, 10-8, and then 22-23 wins. And you're sitting at, instead of a 10 seed, you're sitting at maybe a 7 to 8 seed. Yeah. And then I would say in the NCAA tournament outcome, way too. I would have to see the matchup. I mean, I hope they can take that next step, but in a tournament, I mean, you can go a long, long time with some damn good teams without winning an NCAA tournament game. So I think they will make the tournament this year from the roster I'm seeing. That's my projection of the records. Trevor, Alex, I don't know where you guys are sitting.
Yeah, I think for the record, I'd probably put them at 22, 23, maybe 24 possibly. I will say additional prediction, and this is just off the cuff. Last year's Vanderbilt basketball team was in the top 25 for a considerable amount of time, not consistently. I do think this is a consistent top 25 basketball team. I'll say that on record. I think this is a consistent top 25 basketball team. In fact, I would not be shocked if preseason Vanderbilt starts out top 25.
Bold statement.
Yeah,
I don't think
know.
they will be top 25, but to start.
I wouldn't be shocked.
What do you got, Alex?
I don't think they'll be top 25 to start purely because I don't think that Vanderbilt's earned the name recognition, brand recognition quite yet, at least in basketball. But yeah, no, I 100% agree with you guys. I think it's going to be somewhere between 22 to 24 wins. I think that they'll enter the top 25 in the season. They'll probably be there for a good bit longer than they were this season because that was, one game or something? 2 games, actually. And so, yeah, I'd say probably 9 or 10 wins in the SEC. That's probably going to get them a 7 seed, is my guess, in the NCAA tournament. That would be a very, very vague, with a lot of assumptions, prediction that I have for the roster as of right now.
Yeah, and this is also, as we are predicting this, we will this year 100%, even if football is great, we will have an extra episode to do a season preview of basketball. We will have to. I feel so bad we didn't actually do that, but let's also just not pretend this is something I always say. We're not in a video game. It's not guaranteed that, all right, they hired their new coach. He was a 10 seed. All right, now it's time for the next step, and they slightly improve, and they get better. They get 10 to 20% better, and then the next year they will get 10 to 20%.
Progress isn't necessarily linear.
Exactly. So all this we are saying, we did not expect this team last season to be an NCAA tournament team. No, none of us did. Alex, I don't want to speak for you.
No,
me
I
and
didn't.
Trevor did not. And they exceeded expectations. This year, regardless, we could look at this roster, say all these pieces look slightly better, and they could underperform. So this is way too early, and it doesn't damn Mark Byington. This is the long-winded way I'm wanting to say this. This doesn't mean the program's now headed in the wrong direction if they don't perform great this upcoming season. So I don't think that's going to be a problem. I think Byington's a hell of a coach, but just had to add that in. A couple more questions here. Says from Donardo Forever, says, does everyone know where we are at football-wise? It's one of the only spots where happiness exists right now in the sport. No expectations, a good squad returning with depth and talent on both sides. Soak it indoors. It don't get much better than this fan-wise. No stress, no pressure, just a fighting chance every week. Sky's the limit. Yeah.
I didn't know what the question was.
I think it's questions and comments. People are allowed to just read their thoughts, so it's not necessarily we have to respond.
I thought he was asking where we're at in terms of roster.
I think he's just asking where we're at headspace more than anything.
Headspace. This is the most juice I've ever felt towards Vanderbilt football in a long time.
Yeah, I think as far as headspace goes, I will disagree slightly with the statement. I don't think it's no pressure. Now, I think nationally, yes, there's no pressure. Inside of this fan base, this is your chance. This is an inflection point. You'll always have what happened last season. You'll always have the 7-6, and even if this season they go 6-6 and that's a great season. But they have an opportunity to do something different this year. So I would say there is pressure this year because if they come out with actual offseason juice and come out and go 4-8, 3-9, that's a disaster.
That would kill me.
That would kill it. That would kill all of this positive juice. So yeah, I feel very positive. The schedule's brutal. It's always going to be brutal for the most part. But Virginia Tech's a bit down. You start out with Charleston Southern. I like the schedule makeup at the beginning. I'm feeling good football-wise. I'm sure my stomach will start turning as we inch closer and closer, but I'm feeling very good football-wise. What about you, Alex?
No, I'm with you. I agree. This is probably the most hype I've ever seen for Vanderbilt heading into a season, and that on the national scale, it's very much, Vanderbilt, are they going to pull off another great season out of thin air? And it's no pressure because nobody expects anything from Vanderbilt. But like you guys said, this is an inflection point. I think you see some real juice, not only in the fans, but also like real like industry juice of like, okay, Vanderbilt got some really good transfers. They're in on some really, really good high school players. And you're starting to see a little bit of like, okay, wait, we're seeing some movement, getting the ball rolling there. And frankly, you need to have a successful season to be able to capitalize on it. If you want to make it to a point where you are constantly competing with the SEC, you have to have a winning season where you go at least 7-6 again, if not better. And if you are able to do that, then I think you prove not only to yourself that you can compete in the SEC in this modern landscape, but also to everyone else. And then it's not dismissible as a one-off Diego Pavia magic year. It is a sustainable, long-term thing that you can really, really sell to recruits and to NIL boosters and to national sponsors, and just the list goes on and on. And so, yeah, I think that it's a really, really big season. So, yeah, agreed with all that stuff.
Yeah, you're not going to turn around the fan base or the attendance problems with one good season. You're going to have to turn it around with multiple good seasons strung together consecutively. And one good season is great. This is the most juice I've ever felt. But you got to do it again, because as quickly as this juice game, it's going to leave a lot quicker. If they come out and lay an egg early in the season, it's going to be gone like that. And you cannot get it back in that same way. And I think this is Clark Lee's last chance to have the juice. So it's got to happen and at least match what they did last year. That's it. They don't have to do anything groundbreaking. It just has to at least be a bowl season.
I agree.
Yeah.
But one or a couple last questions here. I'll close on this other one. But G. Barks says, did Vanderbilt's PhD in psychology graduate programs miss out on an aspiring 5-star scholar recruit in Trevor Hulan? Some are saying. It seems they did to me.
They did. I don't think we made this public on the pod, but I did get denied for the PhD program at Vanderbilt. Yeah, I did get denied. But hey, shoot for the moon, you land on the stars, dude.
Last question here before we go to the TDR cocktail break. Alex, you will have to answer this one first. If Will and Trevor were in the same weight class, who would win in a UFC fight?
Oh, that's easy.
No disrespect, Will, whatsoever, but I got to take Trevor. That dude he's just going to see red and it's going to be over.
So I was going to say,
I'm a lover. I think Will takes it. I'm a lover.
Really?
I have to add in the caveat here. So it would be interesting to see how we get into the same weight class, because my build.
Do you bulk up or do I slim down?
It's also, do I just get taller?
Yeah,
What happens
yeah.
here? So there's a lot of aspects. I think if you put us in the same weight class, Trevor is going to still have his tremendous lower body strength advantage. I'm going to have a tremendous upper body strength advantage. Right now, me and Trevor's upper bodies are not separated that much when you look at our bench press maxes. However, legs.
I'm a squat specialist.
He's got me beat, but it's not by a ton. Legs, he blows me out of the water. It's not even close. So I think as long as I can keep the fight off the ground to the octagon. So if you get me in the ground, take me to deep water. It's like McGregor versus Khabib. If you get me on the ground and it turns into a ground and pound match, I'm done. But if I can keep you up, keep you moving, tire you out, I think that's the strategy I got to go for there. Maybe land that knockout punch.
I think too, you'd have to take in the temperaments. And dude, I'm a lover, dude. Like at the end of if I need to get down, like I can get down, but that's not my initial thing. Is to be like, let's buck. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, hey, dude, let's resolve this peacefully.
I understand. I would go with Trevor as the winner there too. I think when you add in the same weight class, you got to remember you're looking at right now. There's about 90 pounds of separation in weight class going on right now. So there's a lot of body configuration that would have to change here for us to get in the same weight class. So great question there.
No, and here's the thing too. I think it's not even really about the size. Like, like there's just some dudes that like, no matter how big or small they're, like they can like whenever they snap, like it's like being in a boxing match in a phone booth, and you don't want that. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I think you have that. I'm like, if somebody pushes me, I'm like, all right, dude, like I don't want to do this, but like we will.
Yeah,
Will's like, hey, white hat, and he's like, let's fight right now.
Yeah, I've got it. The problem is the other side is like being good at fighting. I'm not. So that's going to be the main problem with that. You can have the anger. The problem is the being good at actually not getting your ass beat.
In slow motion. Like, it's so true. Like, I'm just like, it's like a dream.
Well, we got some more questions. They're all baseball. All right, we're going to hit the TDR cocktail break. Grab ourselves a drink. Grab yourself a drink out there. And we will be back to talk some VandyBoys baseball. Welcome back into episode 312 of The Door Report. I am Will Byrum, joined by Trevor Hulan, also joined by TDR writer Alex Kurbegov here to break down some VandyBoys baseball. So Vanderbilt has had 5 games since we last recorded TDR, 2 midweek matchups and a weekend series against the number 5 Georgia Bulldogs. Vanderbilt in their midweek game against Lipscomb.
Yeah. Go Herd.
Lipscomb alum Trevor Hulan, or current student
Almost
/ about to be alum.
Give me a little over a week and I'll be an alum.
So so Vanderbilt won that game in not relaxing fashion whatsoever in 10 innings in extras. Vanderbilt walked it off on a Colin Barzy single. Vanderbilt won 5-4. People were not feeling great going into the weekend series. After what you saw against Oklahoma, you had a little bit of an uptick from the Sunday game, but after what you saw against Lipscomb, weren't feeling great. Vandy at home, number 5 Georgia, a lot of pressure. Vanderbilt comes out and sweeps Georgia in 3 different ways, really. Alex, you wrote an incredible recap. I will swing it to you for when we actually hit on that series and the details of it. But Vanderbilt won game 1 3-1, won game 2 13-7, and then won game 3 5-2. Incredible. Turned the entire, I don't want to say perspective, that's the wrong, but viewpoint, trajectory of the season, outlook of the season around. I mean, I think even the negative Vanderbilt fans on how they viewed this team, they put themselves in position to possibly be a national seed by winning that series. So will they do it? A lot of tough upcoming series ahead. So we will see. A lot will be determined these final 4 SEC series, but a loss that I don't think a lot of Vanderbilt fans expected. MTSU last night or 2 nights ago when you were listening to this, Vanderbilt faced the Blue Raiders at home. Vanderbilt had not lost a midweek matchup since February 20th of 2024 against Dayton. Vanderbilt came out. MTSU just played a hell of a ball game, to be honest. They pitched well. They hit when they needed to. MTSU won 5-3. The first victory for MTSU over Vanderbilt since 2018. So a stark difference in how Vanderbilt fans are feeling from the weekend to Tuesday. Baseball is dumb. I just want to make that statement. Baseball is dumb. Now, I know a lot of it is because Vanderbilt didn't play or start any of their main guys on the mound. They were doing some weird things, with the lineup, whatever you want to say. Baseball is still dumb. Okay, it's still dumb that Vanderbilt can go from sweeping a top 5 team and then 2 days later lose to an 18-22 MTSU team who's struggling. It's a game of series. So we have a lot of questions on the board. A few are baseball, even though we hit on a lot of them. So we'll go to those questions, and then we will get your guys' additional thoughts on where we sit right now with Vanderbilt baseball. So getting to question number 1. World's Strongest Vandy fan says, please explain the new approach being used at the plate by our power hitters and why that's made a difference.
Yeah. So basically in the Georgia series, and I went on this freaking nerd talk on Twitter.
Sorry, I don't know what this part means, but he said parentheses, why I paused there and didn't ask it. He said, no character limits on the podcast, Trevor.
Oh yeah, it's
because you were
in reference
ranting.
to the tweet that I'm about to. Yeah, I went on in reference. Shut the Chad Caldwell, great Vandy fan, great follow on Twitter. I tweeted that one of the reasons Vanderbilt's offensive output was so much better this weekend was because they changed their plate approach, which is something that I've been begging Tim Corbin and this Vanderbilt team to do. Emphasize more extra base hits, emphasize putting air into the ball, emphasize getting home runs. That's how you win modern day baseball. Shout out to Chad. He said that they didn't change their approach at the plate. They just finally had results. I disagree with that. Whenever you look at all the metrics, and basically the plate approach. So to break it down, first and foremost, whenever you're playing baseball, the first pitch you are typically going to see as a batter is a strike. Typically what it is going to be is going to be a first pitch fastball. So that way the pitcher can get ahead, get into a favorable account early. The earlier they can get into a favorable account, the more likely they are to get you out, strike you out either or get an out from you in play. And tradition, and now what you're seeing in baseball is the past 10, 15 years, even like baseball historically, like the past 50, 60 years, is if you were an aggressive hitter and you want to throw the pitcher off and you want to turn the tables into turn the favor your way, you be aggressive on that first pitch fastball. And whenever you get that first pitch fastball, you're sitting on a meatball, you're going to get more lift, you're going to get more action, you're going to get more exit velo, and that's going to put the ball in play and give the hitter an advantage. And Vanderbilt was doing that. Their first pitch swing percentage was higher than it had been all season in this series. So they were emphasizing being aggressive, attacking that first pitch, and getting favorable accounts for themselves. Additionally, Vanderbilt had a higher percentage than they have all season long in extra base hits, isolated power, slugging, everything that correlates to home runs, extra base hits, getting air under the ball. Vanderbilt emphasized. And so this weekend, I do believe Vanderbilt 110% changed their plate approach in order to get a series sweep.
Alex, any differentiating thoughts?
No, not at all. I'm doing some very, very quick math over here to so how many SEC games they played? 18 games?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay, so yeah, here, sorry. If you want some evidence to this, Vanderbilt is striking out a lot more than they used to, and they are hitting for a lot more power. TDR, we know there is, I am willing to stake my life on this. There is credible information that the players and coaches decided to change the approach, not like swing at every pitch and only try to hit the ball out of here, but that they were willing to be like, okay, we just got skunked 14-0, and we need to fix something, try something new. And so they kind of loosened the reins a bit, and they said, go for the first pitches. If you think that there's a ball if you think you can hit a ball, you go to hit it out of the park, and you just go swing it. So in the last 4 SEC games, which is 22% of their SEC games, Vanderbilt has struck out 47 times, and they've struck out a total of 169 times. That's a total of 28% of their strikeouts in 4 games, which if you do some quick math onto that, that means that they're striking out. Each game prior to that was about 20% of their strikeouts, and now all of a sudden they're striking out at nearly 30% of the time. Or not 30% of the time. I don't know. I'm not explaining this very well, but basically they're striking out a lot more, but they're also hitting for a lot more power. They were averaging just under 2 home runs per game over the last actual 6 games. And there are only, I believe, 3 SEC teams that are averaging more than 2 home runs per game. So they are slugging with the best of them right now, and they are striking out a lot more. And those are the 2 simplest ways to tell if you are just trying to hit for more power. If there are more swings and misses, and then there's more power production, which there has been now over a 6-game sample size. I mean, Rustin Rigdon just hit a ball like almost 375 feet. And I don't think we saw him hit one further than 200 for the first 5 weeks of the season. And so I don't know if you're going to tell me that they're not actively doing something different. I frankly just don't believe you. And I also don't want this to get misconstrued as a negative, because some people on the board, when I said that, took this as like me taking a jab at Tim Corbin saying, see, I'm right, which it's not that I'm not doing that, because Trev and I have been very, very public about try to hit for power. That's how you win games, period. But I do want to say Tim Corbin deserves credit for saying, hey, this isn't working. Let's try something new. Mm-hmm. And when he does, he beats Oklahoma. He run rules a very good Oklahoma team. And then, frankly, they beat a top 5 Georgia team that's number 1 in the RPI soundly 3 games in a row. You didn't feel like a single one of those games you got out there at all lucky. You were like, no, Vanderbilt was the better team tonight. And so, I don't know. They switched the approach. They had one stinker against MTSU. I think that's a hangover game. I don't know. But you saw something very notably different. You can go to the stats. The stats support it. And we have the info that says the same thing. Clearly something is different. They're allowing their power hitters to really, really hit for power.
Yeah, and then the next question is actually funny. Says from Unabridged says, do we think the offensive success of our baseball team is going to be sustained, or was it a one-off? Well, that was before the MTSU game. So then somebody immediately replied after the MTSU game and said, got that answer pretty quick. But yeah, I kind of tend to agree with you, Alex. I think it was a hangover game. You're coming off that win for Georgia. It's inevitable you're going to have a slight lack of focus and feeling like, all right, we just a little bit of a deflation of focus, and we just swept the number 5 team in the country. Now we're playing at home against MTSU. There's a natural human inclination to kind of, take the foot off the gas just a little bit, and that was enough if MTSU plays well. So I kind of agree with you there. Are there any other baseball questions? So not seeing any other baseball, just people kind of arguing about if the MTSU game was a one-off or not. That's most of what the remaining comments are. Yeah, that's all of it. It's just people arguing. So Vanderbilt, the 5 games, we talked about it. The one thing that I don't want to be overlooked, and we talked a lot already about the offensive side of things, and I want to get your guys' thoughts, and I know you have more to say about the offense. Georgia was basically the number 1 offensive team in the SEC. Maybe the number 1 offensive team in the country. Yeah. Led the conference in homers, slugging, all that stuff. We read that off prior to the series last week. Vanderbilt's pitching and defense was outstanding. Mm-hmm. I mean, the offense is one thing that helps, obviously, to put up 13 runs in a game. But let's keep in mind, they also put up 3 and 5. Mm-hmm. And the pitching held an incredible Georgia offense to 1 run, 7 runs, 2 runs. That's incredible to hold this Georgia offense on an entire weekend to 10 total runs. Incredible job by Vanderbilt's pitching staff and defense as well. But overall, you've seen what you've seen. You saw the MTSU game. We kind of got our thoughts out. But Trevor has a stat rundown to go through, so I'm going to go to you last. But Alex, what are your thoughts on kind of where you see this team going the remainder of the season, and how are you feeling right now?
So I think that to answer this question, you kind of have to get into whatever the discussion was on the board, which was, is the offensive success sustainable? Because I think that what the pitching staff is now. I think that that they are legitimately a top 3 to 4 staff in the SEC, and thereby a top 10 staff in the country. And they're going to have a tough game here or there because it's baseball and it's pitching, and everyone has a tough game now and again. But they are a legitimately great staff. And so the question is just, is the offense going to support them enough? And I think that I have seen now 4 SEC games, 6 games total with this new approach, and they did lay down the stinker against MTSU. But generally speaking, I think that if they can adopt this approach, and if they can consistently hit for a bit more power, it doesn't have to be that you're Tennessee or you're Georgia or anything, because frankly, you have a better pitching staff than maybe not Tennessee, but Georgia and really all but maybe 2 or 3 teams in the SEC. So if you're able to hit 1 or 2 home runs a game and then get a double or two here or there, and then they are still drawing a good number of walks. So they have a recipe there. They absolutely have a recipe there. It's just whether or not they're going to execute it. And I actually tend to think that, yes, they will, because of the fact that there was a distinct mentality shift that then led to immediate results without having been practiced, without having had a warm up to it whatsoever. And it's already generating some type of results. So I'd say that the Georgia win definitely raised my ceiling for the year. I think that this team they're capable of getting to a super regional. And I think that if all things can go right, they're capable of getting to Omaha, which I did not think coming into this season. But it's just a matter of seeing more. It's going to be really, really hard to know until later, because I'm making it out to seem like 4 SEC games and 6 6 games total is enough to make judgments upon. But it's really not, especially with how you said baseball is stupid and you're going to score 3 runs against MTSU after hanging 13 on Georgia 3 days prior.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think just like any other sport, I would even argue more so in baseball than any other sport. In terms of momentum from game to game, I don't think there's any other sport in the world that relies as heavily on momentum from game to game as baseball. Whenever you look at pitching staffs, whenever you look at dudes who are getting hot at the plate, dudes who are getting cold at the plate, the baseball is a game of momentum, and all it takes is one AB. All it takes is one inning for a guy to get going. And so I agree. Is this sustainable? I hope so. I tend to agree with Alex that even though it is a small sample size, the fact that they can do it 4, 5, 6 games in a row without any sort of drop-off until this Middle Tennessee State game indicates to me that, yeah, they can keep it going, especially against Georgia's not a terrible pitching staff, a good pitching staff in Georgia. And just about every SEC program is going to have a good staff. But not only hopefully is it sustainable, if Vanderbilt wants to have legitimate postseason success this year, it has to be sustainable. This pitching staff is so much better than it was last year. And I don't want to gloss over that. And we actually discussed this in our group chat earlier, and Alex brought up the good point that last year the pitching staff was very, very, very bad by Vanderbilt standards. And this year the pitching staff is back to that Vanderbilt standard. But in the modern game of baseball, a pitching staff alone cannot carry you to championships. It cannot carry you to a super regional. If Vanderbilt wants to have sustainable postseason success, then the offense is going to have to keep this going. There's no can they. If they want to survive, they have to.
Well, the other part of that, and I know you want to get to your stat breakdown of this entire offense, but the other part of that is this staff is so good, but it's not quite the dominant stuff from a staff like a Kumar Leiter combo
There's
or
no
something like
Carson
that.
Fulmer.
Yeah,
true.
it's not it's a great staff. It's probably, like you said, Alex, maybe a top 10 staff in the country, but it's not the dominant staff that's a little different. It's not the 98, 99 mile per hour fastball, the insane slider that's unhittable if it's going. They don't really have that, but they have a great pitching staff and great starters, great weekend guys, great bullpen, but it's not quite as dominant as maybe what they've had before. So they need the offense to subsidize it a little bit more.
And I wanted to, and just to give a little bit of a contrast from this year and last year in terms of Vanderbilt's total offensive production, because I've seen a lot of people and I've seen a lot of discourse saying like, okay, it's not that bad, like it's not really that big of an issue. I think last year every Vanderbilt fan would agree that last year's offense was not good. And that was a common theme that we had on this pod and that fans had on all sorts of platforms, that the offense is not winning you games. Just to put in a little bit of contrast, last year's VandyBoys program, they slashed for 286, 376, 465. This time last year had an OPS of 841. That team hit 72 total home runs. Now, granted, this season is not over yet, so take that with a grain of salt, but that team hit 72 home runs. This year, as of right now, this VandyBoys team is slashing 270, 383, 424 with an OPS of 806. Statistically speaking, they are down in every offensive metric except for on-base percentage, and they're barely up in on-base percentage. Right now, Vanderbilt has 39 total home runs. That's not going to win you ball games in the modern day landscape of college baseball. Now, with that being said, we can throw all of this out the window if Vanderbilt just gets hot and keeps utilizing this plate approach that they have. If Vanderbilt keeps aggressive early in counts, keeps sitting those fastballs, keeps prioritizing extra base hits, and keeps being aggressive on the base path for Jacob Humphrey, this team can make a super regional. And I know that I have been hypercritical of this Vanderbilt team, and it's because I've said it before. I have very high. It's not that I hate Vandy baseball. Like I'm going to say, this is no shot to any fans. I love Vandy baseball probably more than all of you guys. Like I ride or die by Vanderbilt baseball. I have incredibly high expectations for this Vanderbilt baseball program. And I get it. Like, I think the streak of postseason play is cool. Don't get me wrong. I love that. I think it's great for the brand. And I think it's a really good representation of how Tim Corbin has ran this program. And I agree that without Tim Corbin, there was no VandyBoys baseball before him. But like like I've said over and over and over again, the bar for Vanderbilt is super regionals in Omaha. The challenge that they do preseason is not called the regional challenge. It's called the Omaha Challenge for a reason. Like, this is the bar. And so I think that if Vanderbilt can continue with this isolated power and all these advanced metrics that they're doing, emphasizing power at the plate, they can get hot at the right time. And the last thing you want to see in postseason play is a hot offensive team.
I will say, because the reason I'm not as much of a wet blanket will for baseball is I'm not quite as passionate about baseball. I love Vanderbilt baseball. It's definitely 3 out of 3 on the list. But I will say, wow, a monsoon.
I was about to say, it's really coming down.
Monsoon just started outside. But that I kind of forgot what I was just going to say there. That really distracted me.
Vanderbilt baseball was 3 out of 3 for you.
Yeah, that wasn't what I was going to say. That reset my entire brain.
Maybe there's just
literally
not as much passion towards Vandy
it just
baseball.
started hurricaning outside. That's not the whole point. But getting to, I lost it again. What I'm trying to say. Where you said there specifically is that's not going to win you ball games. Where I think people take issue with some of your statements, I know what you mean when you say not going to win you ball games. I know what you mean. You know what you mean. Alex knows what you mean. But just keep in mind when you say not going to win you ball games, they win a lot of ball games, and they're a top 10 team in the country. And it's like what you're meaning is it's not going to win you meaningful postseason, get you to Omaha games.
Oh yeah, I don't give a shit about having a great regular season record.
I think that's the difference, and why you'll often see people say in criticism, which is what it is, will say you guys sound like spoiled Alabama football fans, because that is what they sound like. And maybe to an extent, that's what you should sound like with 2 national championships.
That's my argument. Is like you should sound.
It is what it is. I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying just keep in mind with the phraseology.
And I'll say that too. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Like Vanderbilt baseball. Even though I'm bitching and moaning about the offensive production, they've had to by wins and losses, which at the end of the day, that's what counts. A good season, but I'm saying at the end of the day. For Vanderbilt baseball, I do not care about regular season success. I care about trophies. That's what I care about for Vanderbilt baseball. I don't care about hosting a regional. I care about going to supers. I care about going to Omaha. I literally, and I'll say this, and maybe I am spoiled. And if somebody wants to say you do sound like a spoiled Alabama football fan, fine. God forbid that Vandy fans enjoy and take pride in something for once. You know what I'm saying? God forbid there's one sport that we're like, damn it, we deserve excellence in this. And I don't care about regionals. I want supers. I want Omaha. I want gold in the trophy case. That's what I want as a fan.
Well, a lot is going to be determined with the seeding and where Vanderbilt sits as far as postseason play is concerned in the next 4 series. And Vanderbilt does not have an easy set of series awaiting them. At Ole Miss, number 23 Ole Miss coming up this weekend. Then you have a midweek matchup against Indiana State. Then at home, you have number 18 Alabama. And then following number 18 Alabama, you travel on the road for a midweek matchup against number 19 Louisville.
Battle of the Barrel.
And then you travel on the road to face number 6 Tennessee in a weekend series on the road. And then you have Kentucky at home. So just off the rip, we don't have to do full predictions, but 4 series left. I just read them off. Vanderbilt has to sweep Kentucky to close out the season. That's number one. At least win the series. Where and obviously, I think this is obvious. I'm not even going to ask, but how do you see the 2 road series going? You have at Ole Miss, and then you have in Knoxville. Tennessee's been slightly struggling. I think you have to view Bama. You need to win that series at home, and Kentucky. You need to win that series at home. So, how do you guys see the away series playing out? / what are your expectations? And then we'll kind of close it out here.
I'll start it out, and I know with with baseball season all year long, I've been incredibly negative and critical of Tim Corbin and this Vanderbilt baseball program. I will say this: if Vanderbilt can continue with this offensive production, big if they can, I think they take the Alabama and Tennessee series. I think even if they struggle at the plate a little bit, I think they can take that Alabama series. I think if they are humming at the plate, I think they can take that Tennessee series with it being in Lindsey Nelson and with it being a smaller ballpark, and I think they can capitalize on that. So, Sunshine Bumper Trevor coming back around a little bit, I think Vanderbilt could take both those. I'm not predicting a sweep, but I'm saying they could take both those series.
So I genuinely don't know enough to comment on the Tennessee series. I feel like that's still far enough out, and there's not enough of a talent gap one way or another that it'll really become clearer closer to that stage on the trends of the team. With Ole Miss, though, it's very interesting. You have 2 teams that are coming at kind of polar opposites of the spectrum. Ole Miss was super, super hot to start the year. I think they got to like number 6 or 5 in the rankings, and then they dropped a series 2 weeks ago. I can't remember who against, and then they just lost at South Carolina 2-1. And frankly, unless you're Missouri, you shouldn't be losing to South Carolina this year. Mm-hmm. And so that's a bad loss. South Carolina has no prayer to even get into the tournament this season. But then, of course, they turn around and walk off Mississippi State, who is also not very great this year. But that's a big rivalry win that can give you some momentum. But they, I think, play really, really well into Vanderbilt's hands. Vanderbilt is great at getting strikeouts at a staff. Ole Miss strikes out, I think, the second most in the SEC. Ole Miss is very home run reliant. Vanderbilt is very good at not giving up home runs and extra base hits. And then the pitching staff for Ole Miss, they have a few really good pitchers, but if you can get into their bullpen at all, it goes downhill quickly. So I actually like Vanderbilt's chances at Ole Miss a lot more than I do at Tennessee. I think they'll take 1 for sure, and they could take 2. Alabama is another team that is really struggling right now after a hot start. I think that one being at home, I think that Vanderbilt does have a bit of a talent is over them in terms of talent. And frankly, Vanderbilt's pitching is just going to be good enough to get them through that series. I mean, other than Justin LeBron, who is probably going to be 1-1 in next year's draft, Alabama doesn't have too many players that really, really scare me. So I think that Vanderbilt wins against Alabama. I really want to predict a Vanderbilt win in Lindsey Nelson. I mean, nobody wants that more than me. At this time, I don't think that they would do that. I think Tennessee takes 2, Vanderbilt takes 1, which is, if they're able to win Ole Miss and Alabama, that's a perfectly fine result. And then Kentucky, they should beat Kentucky. There's really no excuse to lose to Kentucky at home. I know that they just beat Tennessee. They're still not good enough to excuse losing to them at home.
We probably need to close this out pretty quickly because the weather's going crazy.
I will ask Alex one question before we close it out, then I swear I'm done. In regards to the Ole Miss series, the reason I didn't comment on the Ole Miss series is it worries me a little bit how dangerous they can be at the plate in terms of their power. So I have down here, so they have an ISO percentage, which is an isolated power, basically calculates extra base hits and home runs. They have an isolated power percentage of close to 200. Now, you are right. They do strike out a lot, but they really emphasize power at their place. Does it worry you a little bit that they could catch Vandy off guard early?
Definitely. No, that's a risk. I think that's a risk with really any of those superpower reliant teams, that they could just hang 3 or 4 home runs on you in the first 2 to 3 innings. and then your starter gets pulled and everything just goes downhill from there. They catch fire and everything. So that's a risk. That's absolutely a risk. I think that if Vanderbilt more or less adopts the same strategy that they had against Georgia, which is you can give up as many solo home runs as you want. You can give up 5 solo home runs in a game as long as you don't make them 2 or 3 run home runs, which really break your back. I think it's fine. I think that I was really, really impressed with the fact that Vanderbilt, they gave up 5 home runs against Georgia. And I mean, they got down in 2 games thanks to a home run in both game 1 and 3. They didn't let that rattle them whatsoever. They just kept attacking the zone, same formula. They did not care. So that's why I'm slightly hopeful in that capacity.
Well, it sounds like our house is about to collapse. And if the internet goes out before we save this and download it, I'm pretty sure we lose it. So we're going to close it out really quickly here. For myself, Will Byrum, my co-host Trevor Hulan, and our very special guest, Alex Kurbegov, this has been episode 312 of The Door Report, powered by 615 Collect.